John came home completely exhausted after a hard week at work. All he wanted was to eat dinner and go to bed. As he stepped into the house, however, he noticed his wife, Kelly, walking from the living room to the kitchen. She was wearing a little black dress, one that clearly wasn't meant for a quiet evening at home. Curious, John followed her into the kitchen and saw her scribbling something on a notepad. When she noticed him, she looked up and smiled. "It's so good to have you home," she said warmly. John frowned, gesturing at her outfit. "What's going on? Why are you dressed like that?" "I'm going on a date," Kelly replied casually. John blinked, unable to believe his ears. "A date?" "Well, technically, it's a bachelorette party," Kelly clarified. "Lisa, Julie, and Emily are celebrating one of them getting married, and they invited me. I said yes. A bachelorette party? And you're wearing that." John pointed to her dress. Kelly glanced at her reflection in the oven glass and smiled. "Yeah, is that bad? I think it looks great." "It looks too good," John muttered. "There's no such thing as too good," Kelly replied with a playful snort. "There's if you're a married woman and your friends aren't," John countered. "You do realize men are going to be looking at you, right?" Kelly raised an eyebrow. "So, what? You're afraid I'm going somewhere without you?" "Exactly," John said firmly. "I see the way men look at you even when I'm around. If I'm not there, they'll do more than just stare." Kelly stepped closer to him, put her arms around his neck, and gazed into his eyes. "Do you trust me?" she asked softly. "Of course I do," John replied. "Then trust that I just want to have a good time with the girls, dance a little, and come home to you." "I trust you, Kelly," John said, his voice heavy with worry. "But I know what you're like. You enjoy attention. A little harmless flirting can quickly spiral. And given how easily you relax with alcohol," he trailed off, imagining the worst-case scenario. Kelly bit her lip, considering his words. "Are you saying I can't go?" "I'm not saying that," John said. "I know how much you love these parties. I'm just worried about what might happen." Kelly fell silent, thinking over his concerns. The longer she reflected, the more she realized he had a point. Still, she didn't want to miss out on the fun. Then an idea struck her. "What if you came with me?" she suggested. "To the bachelorette party?" John asked, surprised. "No, not with me, but to the same club," Kelly explained. "You could be there, close by. That way, you'd feel better knowing I'm safe." John hesitated, torn. The idea of Kelly dancing with other men didn't sit well with him, but if he were there... "Okay," he said at last. "Give me 10 minutes to change." Kelly's face lit up with excitement. She threw her arms around him, hugging him tightly. "Thank you," she squealed, practically bouncing with joy. Then she grabbed his hand and dragged him into the bedroom to help pick out his clothes. "We're going to that new club on 3rd Street, she said as she rifled through the closet. "You know, the one with the red lights." "Yeah, I know the one," John replied, shaking his head but smiling despite himself. "I know how you're getting there," John said. "We're meeting at Lisa's place and going together. You can head straight to the club," Kelly replied, smiling. John nodded, mentally bracing himself for the evening ahead. As they left the house, Kelly turned to him with a reassuring smile. "You know where the club is, so you'll be able to find me easily." "I think that's a good idea," John agreed. They walked to their cars, but before getting behind the wheel, John stopped and took Kelly's hands. Pulling her close, he looked into her eyes. "Kelly, I trust you, and I want you to have a good time. I just don't want anything to happen that we'll regret tomorrow," he said sincerely. Kelly smiled softly. "And I don't want that either. I think you being there is a great idea. That way, I can have fun and still be safe. Well, I'd better go. The girls are waiting," she replied with a quick kiss. "Okay, I love you," John said. "I love you too," Kelly said before they got into their cars. At the club, John arrived at the club a little earlier, parking outside and walking into the spacious venue. The room was buzzing with energy, featuring a dance floor at the center, bars along two walls, and tables scattered around. He grabbed a drink and sat at a table overlooking the dance floor, strategically placing himself where he could see most of the room. About 15 minutes later, he spotted Kelly walking in with Lisa, Julie, and Emily. The group sat at a table just off the dance floor, directly across from John's vantage point. Almost immediately, their drinks arrived, and the foursome headed to the dance floor. John tried not to make it obvious he was watching Kelly, but his eyes instinctively sought her out. Suddenly, an attractive brunette approached him. "Would you like to dance?" she asked with a confident smile. "Sure," John replied after a moment's hesitation. They danced for a couple of songs before returning to the table. As John sat down, he caught Kelly's eyes on him. She was dancing with a man at the other end of the floor. "Okay, tell me, who is she?" the brunette asked. "Who?" John asked, confused. "That woman, the blonde in the black dress. Wife or friend? Who is she to you?" she pressed. John tried to deflect with humor. "What makes you think I have anyone at all?" "Well," she said with a sly grin, "married people usually wear rings. And men drinking in the company of someone like me don't usually stare at the dance floor like they're looking for someone." John sighed, realizing the game was up. "That blonde in the black dress dancing with the guy in the red shirt? That's my wife," he admitted, nodding toward Kelly. "She's beautiful." "So, you're spying on her?" the brunette asked, raising an eyebrow. "No," John said firmly. "She knows I'm here." "So, you're the kind of guy who likes to watch his wife having fun with other men," she teased with a chuckle. "Hell no," John said, sounding offended. "Then why are you here?" she asked. "Because I trust her, but I don't trust every other man in this place. And I trust her even less when she's been drinking," he explained. "Ah, so you're here to make sure nothing happens," she clarified. "Exactly." The brunette gave him a curious look. "If you don't trust her completely, why let her come to the club in the first place?" John sighed. "She has 3 friends, and they do everything together. They're all single, and she's the only one who's married. She hasn't gone out alone in years, and I knew she needed it. We agreed that if I was here too, everything would be fine." "That's sweet," she said with a smile. "You gave her the freedom to have fun, even if you didn't like it, and you're here to protect her." She glanced across the dance floor. "What about the guy she's dancing with? Is he a problem?" John frowned as he watched the man place his hand on Kelly's waist, sliding dangerously low. Kelly quickly pushed his hand away, but John's jaw tightened. "She pushed him off," he said, trying to sound calm. "But after a couple of cocktails, she might not notice things like that." "So, you're planning on sitting here all night just watching?" the brunette asked. "That's right," John said with a nod. "You stand out sitting here with your eyes glued to her," she pointed out. "Maybe you should spend more time on the dance floor, like..." John watched as Amy suggested. "You know, maybe spending more time on the dance floor isn't such a bad idea. Or, are you hinting that you want another dance?" He smirked. "Maybe I am. Honestly, I enjoyed our dance. I'm here for fun, dancing, and drinks, not to go home with anyone. And since you're married, I'd say the risk is minimal," she replied with a grin. John chuckled. "Looks like we can be useful to each other. Let's go." They headed back to the dance floor, blending seamlessly with the vibrant energy around them. The evening continued with dancing, light-hearted conversations, and mutual support. As the night wore on, just as John had feared, Kelly's earlier restraint began to wane. After a few cocktails, she seemed more relaxed, perhaps too relaxed. She wasn't pushing away the hands of men dancing with her, as she had earlier. Some hands lingered on her waist and thighs, while Lisa, Julie, and Emily sat back at the table, unable to find partners of their own. Kelly, however, was still twirling from one partner to another. By the end of the evening, she looked visibly exhausted. Finally, She made her way to the table and collapsed into a chair next to Lisa and Emily, her carefree demeanor slowly giving way to weariness. Meanwhile, John and Amy returned to their table. "You should act now," Amy said, nodding toward Kelly. "The guys might start talking her into going with them. If I were you, I'd ask her to dance and get her out of here before something happens." John nodded. "Good advice. Thanks for your help tonight, Amy. I really enjoyed our conversations and the dance," she said with a warm smile. "Me too," John replied, lightly kissing her on the cheek before walking over to Kelly's table. "Excuse me, madam," he said with a playful smile, "but would you like to dance?" Lisa and Emily looked up in surprise, but Kelly didn't even glance his way. "I'm sorry, but I think we've had enough dancing for tonight," she mumbled. "Are you sure?" "Maybe just one more dance," John insisted gently. This time, Kelly raised her head. Her tired eyes widened as recognition dawned. "Oh, hi, honey. I didn't realize it was you." "Sure, I'll dance with you." John smiled. "Lisa, I assume you're driving?" After their dance, John offered, "I'll drive Kelly home so you don't have to worry." Lisa looked at him with a mix of surprise and relief. "Have you been here the whole time? Did you really think I'd let Kelly come to a place like this alone?" John asked. "Look at her. She's exhausted. If I hadn't been here, she might have left with someone else. Now, if you'll excuse us..." John led Kelly to the dance floor for a final, gentle dance before helping her out of the club. She was so intoxicated that he had to support her all the way to the car. A couple of hours later, Kelly returned, fully refreshed and pouring herself another cup of coffee. "Still thinking about last night?" she asked. "A little," John admitted. "I'm glad it's over, but I think we need to talk about it." "About what?" Kelly frowned. "About what makes you seek out these kinds of adventures. You could have spent the evening with your friends somewhere quieter, but instead, you chose a noisy club full of strange men." Kelly was silent for a moment, pondering his words. "I'm not sure," she finally said. "Maybe I just wanted to feel like I was still wanted. After all these years of marriage, I sometimes feel like I'm becoming invisible." John frowned. "Invisible? Are you serious? You're the most important person in my life. If I haven't shown that enough, I'm sorry." "You do," Kelly assured him quickly. "It's just a feeling I have. Probably stupid." John reached for her hand. "It's not stupid if it's how you feel. But maybe we both lost some of that fire we used to have." Kelly nodded. "You're right. Maybe we need to spend more time together. Not just living side by side." "Then let's start fresh," John suggested. "Forget about last night. Let's spend tonight together. Dinner, dancing. Anything you want. Even dancing?" Kelly asked with a teasing smile. "Even dancing?" "But only with me," John said with a wink. Kelly laughed and hugged him. "It's a deal." That evening, John took Kelly to a cozy restaurant, followed by a dance that rekindled the spark they once had. It wasn't just another evening. It was the start of a new chapter in their marriage, full of understanding, respect, and love.